Well, hello. Welcome back to Tail 3 Cabins. I'm up here in the garage. It's a pretty chilly day out there. What? I thought I saw a drone out there. It's mid-December, just before Christmas, and I'm stoking the fire, trying to get it warm up here. This is my little lair now that I retired, where I come over here in the corner and work out, or sometimes if I'm working on videos. But today I want to do a little bit of format than you're used to. Today's video is titled If You Get My Meaning. And I get a lot of comments from people on my channel that really like the titles that I choose for the videos, or sometimes there might be some subliminal messages in there, either from movies or song titles. So I just want to go over some of the videos I've done in the past, talk about them, show you a little bit of summary of them, some of the projects I did, and what was the meaning in those titles. Some people might get them, some people might go over their heads, some of the meanings might be for older people. So let's get started. The first one is pretty simple. It was a video that I made probably very early on in the spring of 2019. It's called The Bog Days of Spring, which is a takeoff of the Dog Days of Summer. In that video, I had a wet spot that I wanted to get rid of in my driveway. Always wet there in the winter time, so I wanted to dig a culvert and put a pipe in there, cover it up with stone. It was a lot of work with the backhoe. It was my first effort of doing a project like that. And I slowly worked my way across the driveway, and then I had to work my way to the creek and dig a little trench so everything would run off nicely into the creek. And as I got deeper and closer to the creek, I got my tractor stuck. And I got it stuck pretty good, and it took me a little while to get out. So that's the summary of the Bog Days of Spring. If you want to check that one out, feel free to search for it. So the next one is Carry On My Wayward Son, and that was a takeoff of Carry On Wayward Son by a group called Kansas that had a hit song in 1977, I believe. But in this video, I bought a carry-all from Tractor Supply, and I added a little frame around it so I could use it as a large trunk or a large storage area in the back for various items like firewood, carry my chainsaws and tools, and it came out pretty decent. It's limited to the 1025R, so you can't make a very big one. You only have so much lift with your lift arms, but it comes in handy. If I had a bigger tractor, I would have made one much bigger, but I kind of found a good size. I also found good dimensions to use with Saving Lumber, and if you want to check that out, that's how I built it and what I use it for. Another video is The Landslide Brought Me Down, and that's of course a title from a Fleetwood Mac song, and it goes to my Tennessee cabin where we had a little washout or a little landslide next to it, and we lost a good bit of dirt. I go down there and I was keeping an eye on it, kind of getting close to where our propane tank is. We wanted to correct that while we were down there. We ended up calling a guy that works in our area, has a bobcat, and we got a couple loads of shale and stone and a mixture of dirt. We repaired that. It's been holding up pretty good so far. It's probably been about 1.5 years since we did it. It's kind of a temporary solution to a more expensive problem, but right now it's working okay. There's grass that's been planted back in there. So far so good, and like I said, I know we're going to have to take care of it with a better solution in the future, maybe build a little retaining wall, put some spikes in the ground, rebar in the ground, then get a better hole in there. We're also probably going to have to add gutters eventually too to take care of some of the runoff and the erosion on that side. The next obscure title is Turkey for the Tillerman, and that is from Tea for the Tillerman, which was a song and album by Cat Stevens, which he released back in 1970. It's a pretty good album. And what the video is about is my purchase of a new tiller. I had a little bit of issues with it down the road, but my setup and first use of it. And then that evening, I had some turkeys that come in our yard every night, and they jump up in a tree and they roost there. So, turkey for the Tillerman. Your forks are lifting me higher is, of course, a takeoff of Your Love Keeps Lifting Me Higher and Higher. And that's when I finally broke down and bought some dedicated forks for my tractor. Prior to that, I was using clamp-on forks, and they do have their limitations, and I finally wanted to get a little bit more capacity, so I purchased a John Deere APF 10, I think is the model number, and hooked them up and gave them a little try, and then I kind of combined my carry-all and the forks together to create a little bucket in the front so I could clean out my gutters, trim some trees, and take care of some stuff without having to move a ladder constantly around. It's kind of precarious, but it was strapped in there nice and tight, and it worked out pretty good. We end up using it a couple times later on in the year. So that's your forks are lifting me higher. Re-verify range to target. And that is from the Hunt for Red October. And I was very glad to get a lot of comments on it from people that caught it, enjoyed it. In this video, I'm using a subsoiler, and I thought I kind of went with submarine. A lot of people enjoyed that quote, enjoyed my opening with the verify range to target. Got a lot of comments that people love that movie, and so do I. In the video though, I'm using a subsoiler to try to run some wire from my shed to the house, and I kind of put together a little contraption. There's been other ones on the internet, but basically using some conduit, getting some underground Romex, feeding it in there, and trying to run that all the way from my house, hook it up to my panel, back to the shed, and now I got power to my shed. So it worked out. Didn't work out as good as I had hoped it would. If you want to check that video out, there's two of them. There's the part one, how I assembled it and did a couple test runs, and then the actual running of the wire and some of the issues that I ran into it. Bottom line, I got electricity in my shed. I didn't tear up much of my yard, and it worked out pretty good. The rise of the tiller is kind of a Star Wars type reference, that the rise of Skywalker, but in this episode I had issues with my first tiller that I bought. It broke after not many hours of use on there, and I had to get it replaced. Kind of went round and round with Tractor Supply and the company Tartar, and they replaced it with a new one, and that one has been great. And so that's kind of the gist of it. I got the new tiller, tried it out, I've been using it quite a bit. It's works as well as can be expected. I'm pleased with it, and Tartar did right, Tractor Supply did right. So all in all, it worked out. A little bit of inconvenience because the thing broke down right during prime tilling season in the spring when I was trying to put the garden in. I had to use my old tiller the old-fashioned way, which was a little frustrating because that developed a fuel leak right when I started using it, and then I had to break down and get my neighbor's tiller. A little bit about the saga of me and tiller, so that's why it's called the rise of the tiller. Next up, Dirty Deeds Done Dirt Cheap. And that was, of course, the takeoff from the AC/DC song that was released in 1981. Probably one of my favorite AC/DC songs. But in this video, I take the tractor on the road. I go to my daughter's house, and she's got quite a bit of dirt left over from a new septic tank installation. They let it sit for almost a year, and the dirt didn't really settle that much. So we really had to move a lot of dirt out of the way, regrade it, and give her some new grass seed. Check that project out. I end up hanging out there for a couple more projects, but she still has a lot of dirt left over, and I'm still looking at a way of bringing it back here because I could probably use it with my pole barn project coming up. And I think I got a person that's got a dump trailer. We just got to wait till the ground is dry enough, and I don't want to be driving over their new grass just yet. It's still a little delicate, so that'll be in the future. And then from a book by Douglas Adams, The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, comes my video, The Quick Hitchhiker's Guide to Implements. And that one I finally broke down, got a quick hitch for my 3-point hitch. I got the Harbor Freight version, modified it, kind of showed you what you have to do with your top link, put a new hook on there, and just kind of ins and outs. So which of my implements would fit, which ones wouldn't. I kind of hesitated getting that hitch originally because I had a backhoe on there, and if I was taking the backhoe off, I would just put the implement on that I needed. And now I've got enough implements that I'm switching back and forth between a box blade or a tiller, and various other rake, various other implements. So when I take the backhoe off, I kind of plan on using the 3-point hitch for multiple projects. So maybe I'm going to be putting on the brush hogging a little bit, throwing on the tiller. So I've been using the quick hitch quite a bit. It does come in handy. Every now and then you got to get off and give it a good swift kick, or you got to make sure you're on level ground to get things to lock in tightly. But it does make a big difference. I am happy that I got it. So the next video is I poop, therefore I trim. And that comes back from a Latin phrase that goes all the way back to the mid 1600s. But it basically comes from I think, therefore I am. The gist of this video was that I have a septic tank driver that's kind of picky about coming down our driveway, and he really doesn't like having branches or anything hitting his mirrors, so he likes a nice wide berth when he comes down. So before we had him come out, we trimmed everything up and down the driveway, and it needed it anyways, but just to satisfy his needs and have our septic tank emptied out. So we used the forks, and we used my little carry-all and put it on front, and we did a lot of trimming. Did a little brush hogging also. So that was just kind of a neat little video, and that's where the title is derived from. I think, therefore I am. So the next video is Don't Shoot, I'm Only the Tractor Operator. And that is derived from an Elton John album he released in 1973, which was called Don't Shoot, I'm Only the Piano Player. And I think it might have been used in a couple westerns before that. But basically this was kind of a cool project. A friend of mine wanted to build a shooting range on his new property. He had a very long yard, and towards the rear of it he wanted to put a backstop. And I went over there with the tractor and we helped them out. They kind of had an idea what they wanted to do. They had some old telephone poles and they were heavy, and basically strapped them together. We had a pile of dirt in the back for a backstop, and they wanted to get these poles dug into the ground and trenched, and put a little pile of dirt in the front of it. So it came out pretty good, I thought, for not knowing exactly what we were doing. But in the long run, they got a nice little shooting range area. I still haven't been back there since, but as far as I know, there haven't been any ricochets or anybody's been killed. But it was kind of a neat project. It's actually one of my favorites. It's fun. It was in the evening. It finished up just when the sun was going down. It was a nice day overall. Another video that might be obscure and went over people's heads was called The Lords of Flatbush, and basically that's the takeoff of The Lords of Flatbush, which was a movie in 1974. It starred a young Sylvester Stallone and Henry Winkler that went on to be popular in Happy Days. That video started out with my lawnmower giving me some issues, and then we wanted to clear out a bunch of brush around our chicken coop and run area because we were getting some wild animals that were like getting very daring coming over there, and we thought that the woods were too thick right on the edge of it, so we wanted to push the woods back a little bit. We wanted to shrink down the coop area, so it involved a little bit of work with the tractor and the brush hog, and it really came out good because I enjoy having that space now between there. Once you have it open, it's easier to maintain once every so often with the brush hog. At the very end, I pretty much was at my wit's end with my lawnmower, so I had to put it out of its misery. I also end up getting a flat tire on the tractor, so that's kind of where the flat brush comes from. Under Pressure. Under Pressure was a Queen song, I think 1981 if I'm not mistaken. And this was a time when I rented a lift, a man lift, for staining our house. And I was using the tractor to move the van lift around, and also using a little clamp-on hitch that goes in my loader bucket. And I really put that hitch to the test, kind of gave it a good workout. I probably could have used a John Deere quick attach hitch on the front, but all I have right now is this clamp-on hitch. Maybe in the future I'm going to switch over to something like that. I was really under a lot of pressure because I only had a couple days to use this lift. It was Labor Day weekend. I was trying to beat some of the rain, and I wanted to get the house pressure washed and stained all at once before I returned this thing. So it was kind of precarious with the weather, kind of precarious with my soggy backyard, trying to keep this thing from being stuck. It was my first experience with a lift. It worked out pretty good. If you ever think about having to stain your house, you might want to check that video out, see what it's like, or even painting or any sort of maintenance on your house. These lifts are pretty cool. They run on battery, and they got a pretty good reach. You can reach about 60 feet straight up in the air, and then it, of course, varies as it comes down. But Kind of a cool video. It wasn't really popular, but it was a lot of hard work that weekend, and you might want to check that one out. I saw a coyote with a Chinese menu in his hand is a line from, or derived from a line from Warren Zevon's Werewolves of London, where he saw a werewolf with a Chinese menu in his hand. But we were down in southern Ohio, and we were getting ready for hunting season. We were clearing out some paths. I brought JD down there. A pretty nice time. One of the guys had brought down a coyote call, and we kind of tested it out, and sure enough, we got coyotes all around us that were answering us back. So that was pretty cool. So this video had us doing a lot of work on the property. We brought the tractor down, and then we also brought my UTV down, and we were going to give it the test to see if it could make it up the Widowmaker. Ultimately, the reason I have a UTV down here is to try to get back to the back part of my property, and it's pretty steep at one point to get up there. So if it can't make it up there, it's pretty much useless to me, and I definitely don't like walking it. That was a big test for our UTV. It was a nice little weekend with the guys down there. They really did a lot of work and helped out. JD was down there too, and that was a separate video that we had for JD, but we got him clearing out some trails with the brush hog on top of the Widowmaker in a roundabout way. That was pretty cool. It was a nice video. I Am Groot. That was a pretty recent video that I did, and of course, if you were a fan of Guardians of the Galaxy, one of the Marvel movies, you know there's a character in there named Groot, and the only line he ever says is "I am Groot." But this happens to be a tree that I had to cut down, and it was a very large tree for access to this future pole barn that I'm hoping to build. But it was a mother of a stump to get out. A lot of thick roots in there. I tested out the BX Expanded Ripper and kind of gave my thoughts on that, and then went back to the bucket. It was a pretty good saga getting it out. These machines, they're not huge case backhoes, and they have limitations, but if you stick with it and if you have patience, you can do a lot with them. It might be a waste of time for some people, but I'm not going to go out and rent something every time I need something of a little bit more bigger capabilities. I'll just stick with what I have. I can pull it out of the shed, play around with it for a little while, and put it back. Might take me a little bit longer in the long run, but that's the reason I bought it, was to use it for these purposes. The gales of November. This was pretty recent. Back in November, we had a pretty good windstorm. And of course, the gales of November is a line from a Gordon Lightfoot song from 1975 about the wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald. We had our gales come through here, knock down a couple trees. We had the power go out. So I kind of show you how I got things cleared out, chopped up. We took a few chances on cutting down a tree that was tied up in some power lines. I was pretty sure I knew what I was doing. We were able to open up our driveway so we could get out. Power was eventually restored. I showed you how I used my generator backfeed into our house during a power outage. So that's just some of the videos, and there's always a little obscure something in the title or maybe during the video itself that I throw in there, and I really appreciate when people make comments and get what I'm doing, because sometimes I wonder maybe people aren't going to get this or understand it. I enjoy everybody watching. I hope you kind of enjoyed this little look back at some of the videos. If you didn't see some of them, go back and check them out. I try to put a lot of effort in the production part of the videos. You know, I don't just try to set up a camera in the middle of the field and just have it watch me cut grass back and forth. Try to make it a little bit more interesting and share my experiences. I enjoy watching other tractor videos myself, and you know, I like seeing the tractor that I have, seeing what people are doing with it, and that's kind of what I try to do here in these projects. Of course, we have the other cabins that we take care of. Some people like seeing the stuff going on in Tennessee. Some people like the hunting aspect of southern Ohio. So I try to mix it up a little bit. Most of it is tractor driven, and one of the reasons why is because I like driving a tractor. So thank you for watching these videos. I hope you are having a great holiday season, and Merry Christmas to everybody. I'm not sure when this is coming out. It might be a little late. We'll see if I could squeak it in before Christmas. Thanks again. Subscribe, like these videos, and keep an eye on us. I think there is a drone out there.